Welcome to the Deer Society podcast. Here's your host, Brian Lemke.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Deer Society podcast. I'm Brian Lemke, joined today by Mike and JJ Ducart, and special guest up from Iowa, Andy Orr with AWS. How's it going, Andy?
Good, and you?
Doing good, man. Welcome to the new Deer Society podcast studio. Little update since last time you've been here, huh?
Mm-hmm. Looks fantastic. The whole building's amazing.
Right on. Well, we're going to be talking today just about some updates since the last time Andy's been here. Talked about doing some logging last time, and you guys have logged since then. So going to do some kind of updating there. And then we're also going to talk about the ups and downs of a bow hunting season. So, you know, the good things, the bad things, and how you stay positive and focused through the ups and downs of that season. So kind of some cool topics, some different topics, this podcast. I'm going to throw it to you, JJ, right away. Talk about some of those updates since the last time Andy's been up.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is last time you were up, we talked a lot about habitat. You know, we did the hinge cutting with you on part of the Whitetail Scratch property. We always talk about food plots. Last year was the big logging operation. This winter, actually. So season came to a close. Finally, after a couple of seasons of trying to line up a logger, we got a crew in there and got the job done. So a lot of big changes, and I think I'm going to throw it over to Mike on this one. Logging, that's his big deal. And what are some updates?
Well, yeah, it was. I remember when Andy came up the first time and they did that hinge cutting, and it was kind of new to me, you know, because this is the first piece of land that we've ever owned. And so they go in there and they do that habitat work on there, the hinge cutting, and he kind of explained it to me. And then later that summer, I think it was, or early fall, he came back, or maybe it was the next year even, but he came back and we went in and we looked at how it, you know, what the results were. And I'll never forget that. We walked down this trail and we just stood there, and I'm just looking around, and Andy's like, "You hear that?" And I'm like, "No, I don't hear anything." He goes, "That's what I'm talking about." He says, "I call it gray matter. If you just look out there, you can't see anything but gray with all like these saplings and its food source, its comfort, and it was way beyond anything I ever expected." I guess that's really kind of the point that I wanted to make, you know, and that really did stick out to me. But as far as that and timber work, and then now today, we had another piece of the property, the Oak Roost area, where we were just, I don't know what to say, we were almost afraid to do anything in there because there was some good value timber, so we didn't want to just go in and just whack it up or do any hinge cutting for that matter at the time, because we wanted to get a logging operation in there, and that would kind of, you know, hurt it, I think, you know, with the loggers going in and getting out and everything. So anyway, we just held off on it, and I think it was, what, three years since the hinge cut on that side that we finally got to that logging operation.
Oak Roost.
Yep. And what I noticed in that 3-year period was you literally could not hunt the timber. It was so wide open, and the deer would see you from such a long distance. And so we just hunted perimeters. We set up that, you know, kind of our microplot strategies, which was good anyway, because there was a lot of stuff that we were doing in research, not only in deer behavior, but, you know, how they're reacting to food, not just food, but different food. You know, where does a microplot come in with brassicas, compared to, you know, the ag that's sitting out there? You know, do we have an inside out property? Do we have an outside in property? Those types of things. And, you know, so that's really what we focused on. But I would have to say getting that timber, I think we did what, 220 trees, was it, Jay, or 230 trees?
Sounds about right.
Very, very selective harvest. And the thing that the logger, you know, communicated to us was, you got another supercut coming here in 20 years. So a lot of that black walnut, if it's still valuable in 20 years, and I'm sure it will be, it's been valuable ever since I can remember. But there's some really super good black walnuts, which, to be honest with you, aren't really great for a food source so much.
No, not at all.
And they don't do a whole lot, you know, for the undergrowth because they kind of hurt. But it's part of the asset, part of the strategy. And so they went in, they took a bunch of them, and then he let us select the oaks that we wanted out. So we were able to keep the oaks that had a better food source, that had, kind of historical roosting for turkeys and stuff like that, so that we could maintain that wildlife angle to it. And, this guy Baker that did it for us, he's a big deer hunter himself. He's kind of into a lot of the similar stuff that we do. So it was a great experience, and it was a real aggressive thing, because we just been leaving that part of the land alone, and it was super aggressive.
It is. When you go in there after it's been done, it's really aggressive, and it's a pressure issue. You want to try and often, if you can, get it done all in one chunk if you can, because it's going to really, really, change the way those deer feel immediately about that property, and they're going to probably back off it and then come back in it at a later date. I try and get guys to do their logging project, kind of all in one fell swoop, just because after you've done it, then they'll begin, it'll heal, and they'll all begin to come back into the property. But it dramatically changes what's on the ground, and fundamentally that's what matters for deer and for us as deer hunters, obviously.
So I got a kind of a question on that. JJ and I, we talked about it, and I'm looking forward to. I haven't seen you in a long time, by the way, and it's great to see you.
Yeah.
I wish Colton was here too. Get the old band together and have a good old time. But so we really don't know what it has done yet, because we haven't done any work on that side of the property since the spring. We just had so much going on, putting in new plots and just other priorities. And so we still need to get trail systems in there. So we're not set up to hunt the timber yet. We'll still continue to hunt it on the outsides. But I want to see, how we should actually put our trails in, how we should maybe add or not add. It's really more about putting access in there. And then with that access, let's see what this timber work did. Maybe we can move around some of the, the tops that they cut and everything like that, and use that to our advantage. Get some water in. There's a nice spring-fed creek that comes through there, so it's water year-round. We're talking about kind of making a pool in there for that, so they got like a pond that's spring-fed, and get our trail systems in so we can kind of get in and out of them ridges. And if it's not quite thick enough in some of the bedding areas, maybe we do a little hinge cutting. So those are the things that, I'm excited to learn about what the next steps are.
Yeah, and so far, we haven't been out there too much. We shed hunted it once. I think I'm the only one that actually walked through all the tops. Found a bunch of sheds. We found 20-some sheds this year, so the deer piled in there after we had the logging operation in January. They were eating on the tops. We had some standing corn, standing beans. So it worked out really well for winter through spring. But we haven't really been in there since, just kind of leaving it alone, seeing how the deer react to it, the wildlife reacts to it. I'm sure it's really thick. I could tell when I stood on that one ridge where they logged a bunch of big red oaks. It was like, really warm. The sun was just beating down on that top where it used to be big, closed canopy.
Yeah, you get a tremendous amount of regrowth coming out of it for sure. And it is the perfect time to hinge cut what you're going to do in there, just because it's already, that pressure has happened and there's been a huge amount of change, and getting in there and putting a lot more stuff down where they can reach it definitely helps. Some of the smaller stuff, some of the stuff that's not going to have any long-term timber value.
Yeah, and we didn't do any of that. We didn't cut anything other than market timber. So all that little stuff is still there. So we're trying to figure out what do we want to do with that. And now that we had the experience where we lost 2 of our shooters last year because of weather, we had talked about that bench. Could be a pretty good asset. And they always funnel down off that bench coming down to that bat line. They're always using that bench. And so do we open that? Do we add thermal cover there? Do we throw food in there? Do we hinge cut? I mean, what do we do with that? That's all things that we kind of want to learn and understand. And, now that we're figuring out how the deer are using the property and how they're kind of traveling in it, but that's going to change now that the timber works.
Yeah,
done.
your logging, that logging will change all that dramatically, and that's having that happen, and that can really change your season, mess up your season at times. Really, you can have a lot of plans laid, and that happened to Chad and I last year. We had a situation where a property that we had completely ready and laid out, put our food plots in and everything, and this big logging project started. All of a sudden, the landowner kind of made a decision and wanted to pull a lot of trees off it, and it just absolutely destroyed everything that we were working to create on that farm as far as habitat and food plot situations and huntable situations for the bucks that we knew were there, that then pretty much disappeared just because of it was a logging project, and then it was also a pond project. And either way, any major intrusion like that can really change things quick.
Yeah.
And you got to try and just work your way through it. Like with you guys with the oak roost, that logging project's done. Now maybe you consider some hinge cutting real quick, get that put in, and then basically from then on it's kind of cooking. Then the whole property's just getting better and better and better and better as you guys figure out your systems. And obviously I can help with that. So
Yeah.
So a question for you. You mentioned that logging operation kind of happened last season. I want to talk about how, some strategies on how to deal with those ups and downs. But before that, have you been back in there this year? Is that a property that you guys are going to tackle again this year, or what's an update there?
yeah, absolutely. That logging project is over and they're done in there with it. And the deer have, all filtered back in, getting pictures and whatnot. Got our food plots put back in. Some has changed, some are in the same spots, but we definitely had to evaluate, all right, what has this changed as far as where the deer are bedding, all that new cover, all the new food and things like that,
Yeah.
A lot of different things to consider, but we changed a little bit, but a lot of it stayed the same. No, very excited to get back in there because I know some of the bucks that we knew are now going to be 2 years older, and we didn't get a crack at them because of all the destruction and disturbance on the property. So,
Yeah, I think that's, it's interesting because I think there's a lot of people out there that think logging from a hunting standpoint is I don't want to say a bad thing, but a kind of a negative thing, is especially if it's happening during the hunting season, right? But I think there's short-term and long-term, things there can be really good, potentially the next year, with all the new growth and the new cover. And, I think you got to look at it long-term versus short-term.
On that point, it's funny that you say that because I got a lot of friends and, some of them came up to me and they saw when we were doing like the hinge cutting and doing the logging, and they're going, "What, you're taking down those big old oak trees, they've been there for 75 years and, just going on about that's just such a shame." And it's like, you're missing the point of that people think that big mature timber is like some, I don't know, big environmental good thing. And it's really not. Because when those oaks and all that kind of stuff get that old, they start to rot on the inside, they become dangerous, first of all, because we had a lot of them come down and they were starting to come down, and so you got that aspect of it. And they're not allowing actually for the habitat to improve because they're crowding everything out so badly. And so people don't really understand that. And then let's just take a look. I'm a capitalist, right? So if you can harvest something when it's at its peak and take it to market, and you can build a house for somebody, or you can do this, to me, I think that's the thing you should be doing. You know what I mean? And other than just let it sit there and die of old age and rot and really not do anything for habitat and the animals. So it's the opposite. It's the opposite. Taking out that timber and doing those kinds of things, it's not destruction. It's rehabilitation is what it is.
yeah, I agree so much. I spend a lot of time in the woods doing habitat projects, and it's millions and millions of trees I've seen that are just tipped over, they broke, they busted, they're mature trees, they've rotted, they're busted all over the ground. I don't know what the percentage of that timber that goes to waste is, but it's really, really high. There's a lot of dead trees in the timber, and of course depends on the timber you're in, but I've seen places where, you just think to yourself, my gosh, how much wood was that's on the ground rotting and returning to dirt. And the second you go in and start removing some of those giant canopies and all that sunlight, and really at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. When you put sunlight on the ground, deer food and deer cover grow, and that's it. That's the end of the story. And when you do that on a property, you can dramatically change how many deer a property can hold, and therefore how good your hunting is and just your enjoyment of that overall property, seeing all that wildlife. And it's extremely dramatic. And I, like you said, I don't think a lot of people understand that.
They don't.
Until you actually see it with your eyes and realize this is completely different than what it was.
Like that experience we talked about with the gray matter. I mean, it just blew my mind how much new stuff was coming there. And then on your point about taking the timber out, people say, well, then you're not letting it come back and get into the soil. No, you are. All you're taking is the bases of the trees.
Yeah.
All the tops, everything else, that's all going back into the soil. So, you're actually speeding up that process. You're improving it quicker by making those changes.
Yeah, I think let's transition that kind of those thoughts into hunting now and how you stay positive throughout the hunting season. So I know all of us here have had good seasons and bad seasons, and probably good and bad in the same season. So Andy, with the logging operation, or maybe you can tell some stories about some of the past seasons that you've had, where you've had that roller coaster. How do you keep at it? How do you keep focused and stay positive when you're having kind of just crappy luck?
Yeah. I don't know a bow hunter who hasn't had times like that and seasons like that and, periods of a week or 2 or 3 or 5, whatever it is. It could be super discouraging. And I think just for me, it's over time, over a long period of time of bow hunting, I finally, you finally get a realistic perspective of what bow hunting is. It is not, we watch these videos and, oh, here he comes. And somebody shoots a buck in 30 seconds. And you get this really unrealistic image of what is actually going on and what a bow hunting season looks like for the average person that is maybe hunting on public land, maybe hunting on a little piece that they got permission on. Maybe it's their ground or an uncle that has 100 acres. But the reality is there are so many other deer hunters out there trying to do the same thing. There's other people out there trying to recreate in the timber and do different things, logging, and they want to enjoy their go see the pond. And when you start dealing with all of that, it can be tremendously frustrating because you have this plan in your mind of, I'm going to go sit in that tree. The buck a big buck or the buck I want to get is going to come walking down this trail and I'm going to shoot him. And then you're out there and there's somebody with a chainsaw 30 yards away. The day I killed big buck at a 227-inch deer, a guy was chainsawing firewood 50 yards away from me 15 minutes before I killed him. And I was super discouraged. I was sitting in the tree just because I knew that buck was in there and I was super discouraged. And then I was thinking and I'm like, he's out here quite a bit cutting firewood. Maybe it's okay. Maybe the buck won't freak out, maybe. And next thing I know, he comes down to the pond to take a drink, exactly what I said. He was used to that pressure a little bit and was like, there's the guy with the noisy thing that, and then he'll get on his four-wheeler and leave in a little while. And he understood that. But I think the biggest thing for me is get your mind around the fact that things are not going to go the way that you want them to, not precisely anyway. Some will, some won't. And just get comfortable with the fact that you shouldn't be focused only on the destination of, I must kill a big buck. Try and focus on the fact, hey, it's a nice day. There's 3 does 100 yards away. It's fun to watch them. There goes a coyote, whatever it is. Those things that where you're enjoying and trying to understand the whole journey and, that, hey, I'm going to keep at it because we all know lightning can strike any moment. You could just literally just turn around and the buck you've been trying to kill is right behind you, going to give you a perfect shot. It can happen just that quick. And if you're down in the dumps and getting yourself all discouraged, you can put yourself in a position where you're not ready when that happens. Yeah. When it does strike you, we all know,
Yeah, it's funny how that stuff happens too. And I feel like when sometimes if you start having some of those experiences, it always feels like it's classic cliche, when it rains, it pours. And you feel like, maybe you have a miss or maybe you get busted or maybe you're not seeing it. It feels like they just compound. I know that a few years ago, it was funny. There's a friend of mine, his name's Ken. And man, he was just having a shit luck season, right? Like every time he went out, he would text me and be like, man, something's got to give. It was the dogs were running around, or he didn't see a deer, or there was a guy sitting 50 yards away from him, or somebody was walking through the woods, and it was constant. And we had checked out this new property earlier in the season. I went out there with him, and I'm like, there was just this one spot that stuck out, and I'm like, dude, you got to be here during the rut. Like, this is a rut spot. We hung a stand that day, and he hadn't hunted it, and he was just having this terrible season. And that morning he goes out there, and I think he actually even got up late, and he had sent me a picture from the stand. Cows had followed him into his stand. So it was just like par for the course at this point. Like, season continues. I'll never forget it, that he sends that cow picture, and it was 10 minutes later. He sends a text, and he's like, I just shot the biggest buck of my life. And he shot it. It was like a 175-inch 10-pointer. It turns around that quick. So yeah, it's like you got to find a way to, just mentally almost laugh about it, but enjoy the other things. It's not always about killing a big buck.
Yeah,
It's enjoying.
Season is going to be, your life as a bow hunter or as a deer hunter or whatever is going to be a lot of disappointment if you're not able to understand that, hey, it's all of what I'm doing. I'm lucky to be able to be a bow hunter. I live in the United States and I can go out in a tree and hide and bow hunt and hunt deer or hunt them with a shotgun, whatever you do. We're lucky to be able to do that and trying to enjoy that process and stay sharp with your skills and whatnot and practice and whatnot so that when something does happen, you're ready. You can capitalize on it and turn that season around all of a sudden, because sometimes those are the best seasons.
Yeah.
When things have gone terrible, 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 and the cows were out and the guy drove into I have so many stories about that are just horrible where you're like, my gosh, my whole hunt was ruined. But, some of those end with a buck getting killed 10 minutes later or an hour later or a couple days later, whatever it is. You just got to keep pushing,
No doubt. Well, JJ, I guess I'll throw this to you. I think that you probably have more ups than downs in your season, but any downs, how do you deal with them?
Well, I think it comes and goes in streaks, so hopefully we're not on a bad streak coming up. Because there's been years where it's just down, 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 and then all of a sudden you hit a bunch of ups. But through the good seasons lately, I think my mindset's more like, instead of saying like I have to kill this deer, realizing that I just want to kill this deer and I don't have to do anything, and just kind of altering the mindset a little bit. I think in all of us up here, we're trying to film, we're trying to do all these things, we're adding extra pressure. Like filming your hunts adds so much pressure to what we do, and it just makes things not fun. There's so many years where we'd be hunting back in the day and I would get upset because you broke a branch or, the deer smelled us and someone missed, and it's just not fun at all. Just because of all that pressure, like we want to kill this deer, we have to kill this deer. Like we don't have to kill any deer.
You don't have
We always want to kill the biggest deer. At the end of the day, like I don't look back 9 years ago and say, I didn't kill that deer. That was a fail. Like just keep looking forward at what you want to do and just just try to be positive. It's tough.
Enjoy the entire process.
Yeah.
Even like you said, back years ago, I'd get super frustrated about the filming aspect. Now it's completely shifted for me. I enjoy filming easily just as much as I enjoy bow hunting, and that process of, getting to go home and watch that footage and share it with you guys and whatever, and whoever else gets to see it, it's amazing. And that's part of the process now. That's part of the success is getting that footage. And, when the buck that you're after dies, then okay, that's a great day and that's a great moment, but it's just a part of it. Just a part of the whole process.
Mike, I'll throw it to you over there.
Yeah, well, I got a whole lot to say about this one here. So
Get ready.
because
folks.
I'm the oldest guy here, that's why. Maybe I have a different aspect on it, or perspective, I should say. But to JJ's point, and to Andy's point, and to your point, I've experienced all that too. And I think everybody out there has experienced some of it at some level. And it just depends on how long you've been doing it, how old you are, your age has a huge impact, in my opinion, on how you process and how you react to tough times or bad things happening in the season. And your personality. I'm Mr. Intensity over here, the old Marine Corps, that whole thing. And unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, I raised two boys that are very similar in personality, so when one of us, if we get intense, we can kind of take it out on each other a little bit every now and then. Maybe you've seen or heard.
We just saw it sometime recently here.
I have no idea what they're talking about.
But anyway, but when you're hunting with your family like that, and just think about this. So we start this business. And all of a sudden we find out I create this new product. And I'd been creating products for decades in the waterfowl industry and stuff like that. But then I created this new product based off an experience that JJ had when we were deer hunting. Because when it came to them to start hunting, I wanted them to bow hunt so that they could understand the hunting piece of it. And that's where Andy's talking about the experience. That's everything. It's the experience. So now you got this intensity, and then all of a sudden this big buck shows up, and you go to blow your call, and it's froze solid, right? And because I'm this call maker guy, in obviously different in waterfowl more so, goose specifically, I really did understand how calls worked. And that's where the extinguisher, how I thought of it, I actually came to me in a dream. I woke up, I was kind of half sleeping in the morning, and all of a sudden, boom. And I woke up and I wrote it down, and then I went back to bed. And so then once that actually became real and we took it to market, of course, it blew up. So now we're there. So now we got this product and we're trying to prove it out. And so JJ and I he got out of college, he did all the video, we did all the stuff together. We hunted together with these little Sony cams, and I didn't know how to run them, and it was pretty crazy stuff. And we're shooting 4.5-year-old deer, just, calling them in and trying to get it on film, and all this intensity and pressure and stress came along with it. So like if somebody came and just screwed up our hunt, because we didn't have our own land, I would lose it, and that's not good. Now I'm having a bad experience. You know what I mean? So that's a part of the hunting that I experienced that I don't like. And now that I'm older, and it never stops happening, by the way, somebody's going to screw up your hunt, or something's going to screw up your hunt, whether it's a coyote. Yeah, even in our own land, a coyote screwed up my hunt this year, cost me a deer that I think ended up dying because of that. Because that coyote ran him in that open timber before the timber was cut. Mm-hmm. So, but now come full circle, I'm literally, I'm just gonna say I'm kind of retired, even though I'm still involved with all the aspects of hunting and podcasts and video and product development and things like that. I still do all that, land management, but I'm retired. I don't have to work no more. Okay. So my mindset is, I don't care at all if I kill a deer. I honestly don't. I could care less if I shoot a deer, and it drives JJ crazy, because if I don't want to go out that day, I just don't go out because I don't care if I shoot a deer. Do I want to shoot a deer? Absolutely. Do I want to see the big buck? Absolutely. But now when I'm sitting in the stand and I see a mink come walking out and it catches my eye and I think, was that a black squirrel? What is it? It's a mink. And he goes down and he drinks a little water out of the spring and he comes up and I'm watching him. That's the highlight of my day. That's the highlight of my day. I didn't have to kill a buck that day. Now, any second that buck could come walking out of there, and that's just the super adrenaline rush, So I'm not deer hunting. Don't get me wrong. I don't not want to deer hunt, but my priority is really, that is the top. My priority level is to kill a big buck. That's not the top of my priority at all. I want to see that land. I want to be a part of that land. And Andy told me this was going to happen when we first bought this land. He said, it's going to change you. And it did. And so for me to be out there, whether I'm working my butt off today in 100 degrees or like yesterday, water tank, all that stuff, it's a lot of work. But the fulfillment of seeing these deer, of watching, I did shoot a big buck off of the land. So, and I'm very happy with that. But I was more excited about JJ when he texted me when he shot the one than I was about me shooting mine, to be honest with you. So, yeah, as you get older, you're going to change, and just take this information and use it to your advantage. Just ease up, because when I look back at the stress and the intensity, it wasn't fun. It was work. And it took a lot of the fun out. And then we would burn out.
Oh, yeah.
Come November, we were burning out. But we hunted so hard. That's another thing. I don't hunt hard like that anymore. I hunt smart now. You know what I mean? I've never sat a blind deer hunting in my life until, I suppose it was just probably our property. I'm trying to think. We didn't hunt any blinds any other place. Not a lot. And, when you sit in a blind and you have a hunt and there's deer all over you and you do things right, dude, it's like the best experience of my life. There's no pressure, But it reminded me of the days of being in a goose pit, The geese can't see you, but you're underneath, you're watching it all happen. It's kind of the same thing in a blind, They can't see you, But when you're in a tree stand, the intensity is like next level, I mean, I just remember some of them days, JJ, when our signal was, if he was filming, he would grab my leg or my arm or something, but he would grab me and he would squeeze. And I could tell by how he was squeezing my arm or my shoulder or my leg on what was going on. And if he's like claw of death, man, there's a buck like right there, and it's a shooter.
Yeah.
And don't move.
And do not
I'm
move.
picking you out of the tree.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of my take on, I don't have bad days anymore. And it's a beautiful place to be.
I think, one of the things that I would say, and I think times are changing or have changed too, especially with this age that we live in, this digital age that we live in with social media too. I think one of the most important things that you can do as a bow hunter, as a hunter in general, is set your own goals. We've talked about that lots in podcasts previously, whether it's shoot an old buck, shoot a big buck, shoot any buck, shoot a doe, set your own goals. And it's so easy to get caught up in that pressure, feel that pressure from watching other people because it's so prevalent. You see everybody on Facebook is shooting bucks and everybody else is shooting deer, and you have to do it this way, or you have to shoot a 150, or you have to shoot a 4-year-old. There's all these different perspectives, and we have to, I think, remember that hunting is not a competition sport. Everybody hunts differently. Everybody has different opportunities. And I think what you have to focus on is really understand, hunt the way that you want to hunt, set your own goals, set your own standards, chase those within yourself, enjoy doing it, and try not to feel pressure or put yourself up or compete or think that you have to do anything that anybody else is doing. Because it's easy to do that. It's easy to see, 100 people on November 1st that are shooting bucks, and you're like, man,
You start to freak.
I'm not seeing any deer. I'm not shooting bucks. And I think that adds to the pressure. And I think if you have your own goals set and you're complete and you're fulfilled by that, then you have a lot easier time staying focused on enjoying the hunt throughout your season.
Yeah. And for God's sakes, if you are a seasoned hunter and you do shoot big bucks and you see big bucks and you're in a good situation and someone comes up, look at this one I got. Don't share their excitement at their excitement level with them. Even though you're like, that's only a 1.5-year-old deer or a 2.5-year-old deer, don't be that guy or that gal, whatever. You know what I mean? Do the opposite. Get people fired up. Get them, because remember your first deer you ever shot. Think about that. You know what I mean? It was such a big deal. And, that don't be that guy on Facebook.
Yeah, I think the follow through to what Brian said is key too. Pay attention as you're going through your hunting season, as you're going through your hunting times. Pay attention to when you're mad, and when you are, try and figure out why.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm mad.
Why am I
mad? Because everybody look at Facebook. Okay, then freaking eliminate that stuff. Don't look at it. If it's torquing you off and ruining your season, stop.
Yeah.
Why are you mad? Well, because the guy kept driving on the thing. Well, you got to find some other properties where there ain't a guy driving on the thing every day. Whatever it is, just pay attention to why you're getting pissed.
Or just accept it. The neighbor's going to shoot a deer you want to shoot. It's going to happen.
Absolutely.
A car's going to hit a deer. Two shooters die of an exposure. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
This year.
It's just common. I know
just
people
you
that struggle
have
for
to
sure.
accept it.
Yeah.
You
can end up in a negative cycle where your entire season gets ruined, and everything you wanted, which was enjoyment and going out to hunt and having a good time, that all gets ruined because you're just holding on to these bitter little anger components and just trying to figure out what they are and get rid of them.
I don't know if you guys have ever kind of felt this way, but I feel like a lot of younger hunters have to prove it to themselves they can do it at some point. Do you feel
100%.
like, and we'll just talk about your hunting, your career a little bit. Was there ever a moment like Big Bucket where, okay, now you proved it, where you felt like maybe, now I feel like
there was many more than that.
Changes?
Yeah, in my opinion, we go through this progression as hunters. When you start, most people start maybe when they're younger. Let's say you start when you're 18 or whatever. When you first start, you just want to kill anything.
Mm-hmm.
Anything. Just make it stop moving, because that's our drive as human hunters. That's something we've been doing for hundreds of thousands, millions of years, whatever. And then it switches to, well, then I want to get a number of them. I want to get a lot of them, whatever that is. I want to get the limit. I want to get my limit, and just my limit. I want to get my limit. And then after that, then you start looking at like, oh, I want to get a bigger one, like I want to kill a buck. Like I want to get a 6-pointer.
I want to shoot one with bow.
Yeah, I want to get an 8-point.
Not a gun,
and
a
you're
bow.
transitioning through your whole entire hunting career all the way until you're older, like maybe me and Mike, now you start to focus on, well, I want to teach other people how to do it. And I want to I'll help them get, get them started. And so it's this big, huge progression. Yeah, for sure. No doubt. Almost everybody I know.
Yeah, I
What
want to.
did bucket do to you though? Shooting
Yeah,
deer
that's a
was
good
it
point. What
20
did bucket do?
Well, it did two things. Two things come to mind immediately. Number one, what you said. I felt like, I did it. I mean, the story that went along with that deer is just crazy. I had literally took a 10-point target. I had a 10-point Reinhardt target that I glued. I took, I don't know what it's called exactly, but it's a putty, epoxy putty. I glued extra horns on him, everything else, and made the best version of that buck that I could. I had my camera set up on the tree, and I would go up there and practice. And I would practice literally looking the other direction, and then just be like, there he is. And it was just my target. But in my mind, I was
Trying
preparing.
to get that excitement.
Right, I'm
part of
preparing
it.
myself, muscle memory, all. And so what did I do first? For the camera. I'd get the camera, I'd turn it on. I had dozens and dozens of videos of my target getting shot because I was practicing to kill that deer. And then when I finally killed it, it was just a giant sense of satisfaction. I hadn't wounded a deer in, I think it was 16 years. I was super proud of that, super, super proud of not wounding any bucks, and it felt like some kind of reward. But then at the same time that happened, I had a huge just realization because all these people got super nasty and bitter, and everybody, they were saying, you hit it with your truck and you shot it with a rifle. And it was these crazy stories going around that I sold it to Bass Pro Shops because my kid had autism, just the craziest stuff. I couldn't believe it. I mean, and so it just made me realize, there's it just really, it was kind of a deep hurt like that. No, nobody's really rooting for you. Like you kind of think we're in a community kind of sometimes. And so it was two things that happened at the same time, but they're both really interesting,
But I think that wasn't that the time, what was the name of that one archery or one of the deals where they actually closed it down. People quit going to it because everybody was just slamming on each other. Can't remember what it was, some kind of forum. It was archery talk.
We all know that there's plenty of haters in the world.
I mean,
like I said earlier, you got to analyze what I was getting upset about it. And I just realized this is my world. This is something that I'm involved in. I just shut it all out and just went back to hunting. I had a lot of people say, well, what are you going to do now that you killed that giant when what do you mean I'm on a bow hunt? I love bow hunting. It doesn't change anything because I killed a giant deer.
Yeah.
It just, the next buck I killed after him was a 145-inch 8-pointer, a 5-year-old buck, Couldn't compare in any way, but he meant a lot to me. I self-filmed it.
I'm going to add something to what you said there. You said, like, I like to share with other people and see them be successful. And, you can look at Illusion, the Deer Society, in any way you want. But, because we sell products, so people think, they're just trying to sell their product. Well, you know what? Every single thing that we have ever done, every product that I have ever created, in fact, any job that I've ever had in my entire life, and I didn't know this till somebody pointed it out, was designed to help other people. And when somebody told me that, I go, what are you talking about? It goes, well, what was your first job? I go, well, I was in the Marine Corps. Well, that's not helping doing it for other people? Oh, what was your next job? I go, well, I worked at the Mayo Clinic. Oh, that has nothing to do with helping other people? I coached for 20 years. Oh, that got nothing to, And then when I finally broke away from the corporate world and I did my own thing, what did I do? I taught other people how to communicate with animals. You know what I mean? To this day, and I think that's why I don't care if I shoot a big deer. Because seeing people utilize our products and our strategies that we're developing here, and Andy, you're a big part of that. It's not me. It's not about Mike. It's about JJ. It's about everybody involved. It's about Brian sitting here, putting that content together. You as a pro staff, we learn from you. We learn from ourselves, JJ, by getting out there. I mean, it's all about and sharing that so that people can become more successful. That has unconsciously been my goal, but that's where my fulfillment comes from, and I didn't even realize it.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't even know it. But that's what really, really fulfills me, in my life.
Yeah. It's the exact same reason with AWS. That was stuff I was doing on my own. And then I partnered with Rod, and then it just led to realizing, this is something that is helping people with their properties and helping them achieve their goals of more deer, bigger deer, hunting those deer, killing them. And once you've got a taste of that, you're finished.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Once somebody comes up and they got tears in their eyes and they're thanking you, what else am I going to do for a job?
The email.
That's all I want to do.
Man, dude, that's it.
Yeah, a
that's
text
it.
comes
You're
in,
done.
I got him, I can't thank you.
Just
Yeah, that's super addictive, and just also ties us into this life of outdoors and hunting as well,
Well, if you're out there listening, you're having a rough season, you're going through those ups and downs, remember, try to find what fulfills you. Kind of drown out the outside stuff, find what fulfills you and chase that and enjoy it. As we wrap up here, I want to tell one story just to end things. And it was, I had a real eye-opening moment here a few years ago. I had the opportunity to go and help field produce a film out in Colorado, and it was called The Old Bull. And basically it was a guy, and he was taking his grandfather on, quote unquote, his last elk hunt. He had elk hunted his whole life. And I think he was in his late 70s, and all of his buddies stopped going, and he wasn't going to go anymore unless somebody took him. And the older gentleman, the grandfather, his wife had passed away and left. A friend of mine, Nick, his grandson or her grandson, a little bit of money to take the grandfather, Joe, on his last elk hunt. It was called The Old Bull. Anyways, long story short, I took him on this elk hunt and we filmed it. And I remember he ended up shooting a bull, and we were walking off the mountain, and I was walking behind this guy. And understanding that the way that this whole deal went down is like, this was his last elk hunt. And I just remember it was like, it wasn't a very long walk off the mountain, but I can remember thinking the whole way, watching his footstep every time, just trying to, for even a second, understand what was going through his mind and what would be going through my mind if I was walking off the mountain for potentially the last time. Mm-hmm. And like, so many things were hitting me at that moment. And it's like, I'm so fortunate. We're so fortunate to be able to go out and do what we do. And we overlook so many of the small things all the time and take them for granted. And out there in the woods as hunters and getting to enjoy all these things, like, man, it hit me like a freight train. And it was like, man, you better start enjoying every single part of everything that you do and everything that you're out here, basically living every day, because that's what it's about. Because you know what? You could be any day that last walk off the mountain or that last walk from the tree stand. So like, that is for me what it's about. And I try to chase that every day.
Well, I tell you, you got another thing really big coming yet in your life too. And that's when, you take your kids out and you introduce them into this stuff. And I never pushed them into anything. If they wanted to come, they wanted to come. But I remember coming home with, a deer or a goose, and they'd be at the window, just, on the kitchen table, like, Dad, I got, and they're like, what did you get? What did you get? And then the door would come flying open. They'd go out there and they'd want to touch it, and everything. And then finally, we started the process of, actually taking them and teaching them hunting. And I look back at it now, and mine was a little bit more than hunting. It was more about developing products. It was about creating a business. And I look back at where I am now. Where are we today? And I look at JJ and these freaking sick deer that he keeps shooting all the time. And it's not luck. I mean, it's what he's learned. Mm-hmm. It's what he's learned through the experiences that we had. And I take so much pride in, not in me teaching him, but in him. And I look at Chris, who followed my footsteps of being a Marine and served over a combat Marine over in Iraq. And he comes back and he's running this huge company now that started out of our basement not more than 15 years ago. And it's just so mind-boggling to walk away and step back and look at that. And that's something that you get to look forward to yet. And that's a crazy thing, buddy.
It's amazing for sure.
Yeah, and kind of maybe a little bit lighter story here. Brian's been taking his kid turkey hunting, 2 years now, Bert?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I got my oldest are girls, so maybe they're not going to be in hunting, maybe they will. Last week I go to the oldest, I'm like, because I saw some turkeys and she's walking around through the woods with me. Like, you want to go turkey hunting next spring? She's like, yeah, I do want to go turkey hunting.
She did.
She's like, but Dad, you'll be alive next year? I hope so, but
I can make
she
it.
didn't quite grasp that it was, just a few months away. But
A year's a long time. when
so
you're a
I was
kid.
all excited, like, maybe she's old enough to go turkey hunting. Are you going to be alive by next year? I hope so.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
That's awesome.
Taking them hunting young.
You
there's
can
some
see
fun
basically
stuff.
what we're talking about here is there's 4 people who are very, very thankful for the life they've chosen to be heavily involved in the outdoors. And I appreciate that a ton. And I know you guys do too.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Enjoy every minute of it.
Yeah, that's some.
On that note, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Download the Deer Study app if you haven't done so already. There's tons of great content out there. Hey, if you're having a down season, go watch a hunt breakdown. There's lots of good tips, strategies, and just guys having fun out there enjoying the outdoors. So thanks again for watching, listening, and we'll catch you next time.
All our sponsors here at Deer Society are partners whose equipment we know we can trust are going to make you more successful and have a better experience in the field. Products like Illusion Systems, maker of the Black Rack, the Extinguisher, and the Phase Body Odor System. Tacticam, Reveal Cell Cameras, 10-Point Crossbows, Onyx Maps, Osseo Gear, Huiman, and Big Frig.